Alright boys, if you like wrestling, ninjas, Muay Thai, a shitload of paid DLC and TNA, then you're in luck because we're talking about Dead or Alive again. The last game in the series I covered was 2001's Dead or Alive 3 for the Xbox. I'm quite a fan of this game, but for this video I wanted to jump forward in time to the most recent entry into the series, a game that I never played prior to making this video. Released in 2019, Dead or Alive 6 is, as of recording this video, the most recent entry into the series. However, most of the attention that DOA 6 received before launch wasn't about the actual gameplay, rather it was about controversy surrounding the game's costumes and its push towards a more esports friendly direction among other things. Look, there is a lot of stuff to get through when covering this game, from its character roster, story, new gameplay additions, lack of features on launch, and a whole lot more, so if I miss something, you'll have to forgive me. I thought that playing Dead or Alive 6 for the very first time all these years after launch would make for an interesting topic, and due to me not being a die-hard fan of the series who can't sleep without my DOA body pillow, I believe that I can provide an impartial opinion on the game. Without further ado, let's begin analysing Dead or Alive 6 and exploring what it does right, what it does wrong, and what it doesn't do at all. In my view, one thing that Dead or Alive always does well is its character rosters, and DOA 6 is no exception. There are 31 fighters here, including the DLC characters, and they all look and feel great. As always, many real-world fighting styles are represented in the game. Tina is a pro wrestler, Rig is a taekwondo fighter, Hitomi is a karateka, etc., and it goes a long way in making these characters feel believable. Many of their moves and strategies carry over from Dead or Alive 5, so if you have experience with that game, you'll feel right at home. Classic characters like Kasumi, Ryu Hayabusa, Lei Fang, Helena, Base, and Kokoro are joined by new characters Diego and Tamaki. While the latter is from Dead or Alive Extreme Venus Vacation, Diego is a brand new fighter, and his foreign name and scrappy brawling reminds me a lot of Tekken 6's Miguel. DOA 6's characters all look the part too. The game's graphics are fantastic, and I actually think it looks a little bit better than Tekken 7 to be honest. The characters all animate beautifully too. Watching Tina pick up a dude 3 times her size and throwing him around will never get old, and while some animations and voice lines have been reused straight from Dead or Alive 5, this is nothing new in 3D fighting games, so it gets a pass. Speaking of all these characters, the game also has a cinematic story mode. You can choose to play it in chronological order, or with the characters you like in an order that suits you. But to be honest, I didn't think it was that great. The story itself is pretty nonsensical, although this could be because I'm not super familiar with the stories of the previous games, and I thought some of the writing was funny, but not on purpose.
Actually. But you see, there's a reason. Huh? Someone with your strength might even...
Overall, the story doesn't matter too much to me personally, because I play Dead or Alive for the cool characters and the fighting mechanics, not for the Shakespearean narrative. Speaking of fighting mechanics, how do they work exactly? Dead or Alive 6 makes use of some brand new features in its fights, but the core gameplay is how it always has been. There are 4 buttons: punch, kick, guard, and throw. You use these with directional and sometimes motion inputs on the joystick to perform moves and combos, and stringing them together at the right time can lead to some big damage. Attack properties are also like that of a 3D fighting game like Tekken for example, as there are highs, mids, and lows for you to use, and each kind of attack has its own way of defending against. If you press back and guard while being hit or in a block string, you can catch your opponent's attack and turn it against them. This defensive system is great fun as it rewards you for identifying player tendencies and animations. Dead or Alive makes use of what's known as the triangle system, and it works like this. Strikes beat throws, throws beat holds, and holds beat strikes. This is the backbone of DOA's general combat system, and remembering it all is essential in high-level play. Many combos in the game are very simple to perform, and while a lot of them can feel a bit button mashy, doing them against an experienced opponent who knows when and where to reverse your attack will get you punished big time. A new addition to the game is the meter at the top of the screen, and this ties into the new 5th button, the S button. Pressing this button multiple times will perform an auto combo that transitions into a strong finisher called a break blow if you have full meter. You can also perform a break blow on its own in neutral by inputting forward and S. If you press back and S with half a bar of meter, you can execute a break hold, which lets you catch highs, mids, and lows. Finally, pressing up or down and S lets you perform a sideways maneuver to dodge enemy attacks, and this doesn't require meter. Personally, I love these new additions. They don't feel super tacked on last minute, and they don't detract from the core DOA gameplay by turning Dead or Alive 6 into a crazy auto-combo game. Dead or Alive 6's fighting mechanics are great, but there isn't a lot of standout content for you to interact with. First up is Story Mode, which I mentioned before. The reception to this mode was negative, as both fans and critics thought it was confusing and kind of awkward with its attempts at telling a cohesive narrative. DOA Quest is sort of like Virtua Fighter's Quest mode, as you're tasked with winning fights while completing certain objectives. There are 130 quests in total, and clearing them earns you in-game currency. These quests are fun, but they can get a bit repetitive over time as the AI simply can't match the skill of a real player, although by playing these quests, you're going to pick up some skills and strategies that are applicable to real matches, making DOA Quest a sort of extended tutorial mode. Next up is Fight, which contains Versus, Arcade, Time Attack, and Survival. These are all pretty standard modes you'd expect from a fighting game, and there honestly isn't much to say about them. However, one thing this game doesn't have is the famous Tag Team mode. Games like Dead or Alive 3, 4, and 5 all have the Tag mode, where you pick 2 characters and fight against another team of 2 characters and have 2v2 battles, and these were awesome. I believe tag team battles couldn't make it into DOA 6 due to the developers using a brand new engine to make the game, and it's a bit of a shame that they couldn't make their way in. A trend I've noticed with DOA 6 is that the game likes to play it very safe with the content on offer. There's nothing super innovative or mind-blowing going on here, so it's genuinely kind of difficult to discuss the content of the game in great detail. However, one cool thing this game does do is found within the DOA Central mode, and this lets you customize characters to your heart's content with new hairstyles, colors, outfits, etc. But because this is a Dead or Alive game, the amount of cosmetic DLC and kind of bullshit pricing practices was simply ridiculous, which we'll get to later. And by later, I mean now. Okay, it's time to address the elephant in the room. Dead or Alive as a series has always been known the world over for its rampant sexualization. But with Dead or Alive 6, the development studio Team Ninja wanted to take the series into a more presentable, sort of esports friendly direction, while still maintaining the lewdness of the previous games. Since these two goals directly contradict each other, the developers were stuck between a rock and a hard place as they were trying to figure out how to appeal to everyone. In the final game, characters like Kasumi and Honoka have their default outfits cover up lots of skin, but their unlockable outfits are the more revealing ones. As for how you unlock them, it's very confusing, but I'll do my best to explain. Take something like Street Fighter V for example, where you unlock characters by beating survival mode. Originally in Dead or Alive 6, you'd have to keep playing modes like DOA Quest, rank matches, etc. over and over and over and over and over to earn these things called costume points. Some outfits require hundreds or even thousands of these points to unlock, but you can never choose which costume you would earn. So for example, if I played a bunch of games with Tina to try and get her outfits, the game could just say, well, since this unlocking process is all random and it's all up to RNG, here's a sports bra for Mila, a hat for Base, and a new mask for Hayabusa. I'm exaggerating a little bit of course, but in reality you couldn't unlock costume parts specifically for the character you wanted even if you only played as them. In a later update, this was changed so that unlocking costume parts would become much less time consuming, as well as the game only giving you parts for the characters you wanted, which helped to cut back on the grind. The summary I just gave was a vast oversimplification just for the sake of timeliness, but it gets worse. Like the previous game in the series, Dead or Alive 6 has a crap load of DLC. Seriously, this game has multiple season passes and over 400 individual DLC packs for you to buy. Aside from DLC characters like Momiji or Cooler Diamond, most DLC in DOA 6 is purely cosmetic. Steam lists 463 DLC packs, although some of these are a bunch of individual DLC bundled together like the school uniform pack for example. But let's say you decide to buy all 463 packs, probably because you're either a billionaire or because you have an unhealthy obsession with Christie's chest. After spending around 5 decades doing the math, I found that there is over $2,000 worth of DLC to purchase in the game. Now look, to be fair, this isn't 100% accurate, as in reality, some of these are character add-ons for the free-to-play Core Fighters version of the game, which lets you buy characters separately, and this amount also includes duplicate costumes and things like that. But overall, I estimate that there is around anywhere between $400 to $500 worth of DLC, which is absurd. I shudder at the thought of someone buying it all. With that amount of money, I could comfortably retire to the Bahamas and live there building robots like Lee in Tekken 4. And to finally top it all off, the game's saving grace, the cherry on top of the Kasumi sundae. is that Dead or Alive 6 only had just over 1 year of official support before the game died. That's it. It got 1 year of support and the DLC stopped. No more patches, no more updates, no more balance changes, no more characters. Nada. Done. All in all, while Dead or Alive 6 is far from perfect, I still enjoyed my time with it. The story mode, lack of innovative content, and excessive amounts of DLC soured the deal for some back when the game was still being updated, but if you're playing the game now that support is over, it's honestly not too bad. The Dead or Alive competitive fanbase may not be huge, but they're very passionate about the game, and they still run tournaments for DOA 6 to this very day, so check them out if you're interested. Honestly, Dead or Alive 6 really reminds me of Street Fighter V Vanilla due to the DLC practices and lack of content on launch, but while that game evolved over the span of several years into something really special, DOA 6 sadly never got the same opportunity. I would have loved to see how this game could have changed over time for the better, with new characters, modes, UI overhauls, etc., but that's just my imagination. Let's hope that a potential Dead or Alive 7 or a series reboot can bring the series back into the limelight and pile drive the competition.